excited to have the Lansbach family here today. Really excited, and I can tell from all the greetings that a lot of you are very pleased with about this too. To think that Wendy and Bernie came all the way from, what, Oregon to Florida to up here to come back to Little Land O'Lakes. How neat. And the title of our program is Legacy and Stories of the Gateway Swim Team from the 1960s and 70s. And this is being featured in our museum at this time. And we've been featuring the history of the Gateway. This is our second year. And the first year we had the beginning, from the beginning with John King, the building of the Gateway, the whole complex. And now we're in the second year, which we're calling the Williamson era. And when I was doing research on this, I didn't know anything about Mr. Williamson, Walt Williamson. But I have to say, his legacy also is quite phenomenal. He owned the Gateway for about a decade, maybe a little bit more. But after he purchased it, he put on the second story, and he also built the beautiful swimming pool with the atrium setting with the glass top ceiling, which does not exist anymore. A harsh winter took that out, I don't know how many years ago, but yeah, that's what I've heard. And so anyway, for anyone that hasn't been at the museum, the whole exhibit is there for you to see at your leisure. And I also put up a mini exhibit right there, which features the swim team and Mr. Williamson and a little bit on Laurie and Wendy too. And but all the swim team members. And I could see, unfortunately, as Luke is not here today, but we're going on anyway. I also wanted to just read for you Barbara Nearing. She was actually the person who spearheaded all of this and said, wouldn't it be something if we could have a program and Wendy could come back here and they could do a program for us about the swim team. So she contacted Wendy and got the ball rolling on this. And she's had health issues this last year for those that do know her. And unfortunately she's not able to be here today, but she wrote up this beautiful thing this morning that I printed out, and I'd like to read to you. If I could be there with you, as I wished, I would tell you that I'm not surprised at the success of the Lansbach family and their continued attachment to Land O'Lakes and its history. Because they are part of what makes our community thrive, their mom, Mary Ellen, and dad, Hy Lansbach, saw to it that their children espoused all the personal and community values that are so admired. At a young age, Wendy was a special dedicated caregiver for our autistic son, Todd, a feature that we share with Wendy's sister, Bonnie. Dedication was practicing swimming, and only after practice, coming down to Beaver Lake behind the golf course to splash and swim with friends. Dedication was spending hours in the beautiful Gateway pool, strapped to a harness hanging from the ceiling, designed by her dad, Hy, and training swims in shivering cold Beaver Lake. And that was only the beginning. Among other family members, Wendy, Laurie, and Luke have maintained their connection with Land O'Lakes in their participation and valued help in presenting the current exhibit at the museum. The Gateway history will go on for another year and another era, but the special story of the swim team and the Lansbach and other supporting families will always be remembered. Thanks to everyone who made this exhibit special. Beautifully written. That's our Barbara. And so, I guess at this point, I'd like to turn it over to, I think it's going to be Wendy and Laurie, to share all about the swim team, from its beginning and how their parents got everything going, and with Mr. Williamson, Chuck McCormick, who was the manager at the Gateway at that time. And I'm anxious to hear what they have to say too. You guys, come on up here. Sure. This is very informal, by the way.
Yeah, very informal.
We're going to just share.
Yeah, we want to do a lot of questions and answers afterwards to make it a little less informal. First, I just want to thank everyone for coming today. It means a world to our swim team back then and us as a family and community. I can't thank you enough. To Chris and Barb and Lois and the whole historical museum, I mean, they have done phenomenal at the museum, from the King era to now, present, and the future of the historical museum. We can't thank you enough. And those that haven't gone to the museum exhibit, it's phenomenal, beautiful. A lot of artifacts from the King era, Williamson era, to our little swim team that this community supported when we moved here in 1961. I was 4, but I never dreamt the community would embrace us as you all have. I mean, we grew up with many of the people here, Dee Caruso's family, I mean, the Grubel family, as far as everybody. Our team was very small, as you know. Unfortunately, we lost 5 of our team members already, which is sad. A lot of them have moved on that they're obviously not able to come. Some live out west, some live in Texas now. So that's a little, that's sad a little bit, but we're just so thankful, and just to have our community support all these years has been tremendous. For me, moving from New York with my family back here to Land O'Lakes, I never dreamt I would be fortunate to move back here and be embraced by this community, but it's been phenomenal. I'm still on my right path. I couldn't be prouder of this town, what
That's Land O'Lakes for you.
have all done. Yeah, and it keeps on going. Next generation after that. My kids are fully grown. They love coming here with my grandsons now. That's what it's about. But I moving back here 11 years ago, I came back to stay with our mother, and I thought, I'll stay a little bit, but never did I think, I just I can't possibly go anywhere else. I love it here, and it's been wonderful. Our swim team was a gift to us looking back, starting our club with our parents in our town. Little by little did we know it would amount to this magnitude, or to have a representation by our community to make an exhibit for our little old team. I couldn't even dream about it. And then everything me personally did after competitive swimming, going to Florida State, then going on to higher competitive swimming, I just couldn't fathom that as a youngster, but I sure am glad I did, and it was the help of our team back then and our community.
And your parents.
And our parents, our neighbors, everybody, so it really was a blessing. I'm very fortunate being the youngest. All my siblings are here, presently, alive, as I should say. My sister Wendy and her husband Bernie, my sister Bonnie, my sister Linda, my wonderful brother Todd, sister-in-law Sherry, my nephew Luke and his beautiful fiancee, who we're just meeting today, Natasha. Thank you so much for coming. It's wonderful. As you know, in a community like this, in our small community, family is everything. Some days I just can't imagine how other people live other places, but it seems they always come home. You always move back. I was fortunate that I'm close enough to get to my siblings, and when my oldest brother moved back here a couple years ago, so that was a blessing. I mean, it's just magical for me. So I thank you all, and our team meant everything to us. We wouldn't be here. I know my success wouldn't have come except with that little swim team, and I wish all our team could be here, but that's just sort of how it is sometimes in life, and you learn, and our team was everything to us. We have a wonderful video that my niece put together. We want to keep that going. Wendy was going to say some things, and then we'll want to do some questions and answers if you want to talk about our meets and moving on, but I want to let Wendy speak a little bit before we did those questions and answers.
Baby sisters, they're awesome. I just have to reiterate on a community level, God, how blessed we were. I think back, Laurie saying we moved here in 1961 from Merrill because my dad and my mother wanted to be in a smaller town. They wanted their kids to be a part of a community. They wanted us to have the friends and that you could embrace and that you could do things with and that you could go to from grade school on to high school and then stay in those relationships and have those great friends into your 50s and 60s and 70s. And here, my really super great friend that I had during Eagle River High School for 4 years, Hillary Schiffman, one of my best friends, all through high school that I haven't seen in 25 years. Makes the effort. It's everything that Laurie said. Community is everything. Laurie and I absolutely, without a doubt, would never, my parents, my family, would never have had the opportunities had we not had a community like this. I speak all over the country, I've spoken all over the world, and I have yet to find a community of 600-700 people that can come together, pull together for the betterment of everybody, because when one succeeds, all succeed. And I never found that more so than in this town. It's been amazing. We come here in 1961. My mother and my dad was working at the Gateway Hotel, got a job as a mechanical engineer. My mother wanted, and being in Merrill, we were around lakes all the time, and my parents wanted us to learn to swim. Number one, to save ourselves should something happen, and the other is to save a sibling or somebody else. And that's really was the premise of why we started to swim. And Laurie and I took to it. Not that my other siblings didn't, but Laurie and I loved it. And I say it all the time, had I not swum, I never would have had this relationship with my parents that I had. Where would I have had this relationship with the Barbara Nearings in this town, and the Vi Becker, and these people that brought us in, the Carusos that just brought us in and gave us that kind of support. I never ever, and Laurie will say the same thing, my parents used to say the same thing about this town. Competing at the local level, my parents always, my mother started the swimming team. It was just like, my kids know how to swim, we've got this pool, Dad's at the hotel, my mother goes, I'm gonna lifeguard. I can lifeguard, I'm gonna start a team, and she starts this team of a handful of kind of us ragamuffins, and I'm sure everybody in Rhineland or in Wausau and Merrill and then beyond, Minneapolis, when we started going to these swimming meets, probably they looked at us like, first of all, we go to these swimming meets and we were pale white in the middle of the summer, and everybody is suntanned, and they're looking at us like, well, this is a team, like, what's with this team? But we made our mark. We made our mark when we were 8 and 9 and 12 and 15. And I had this town that put together all this money for my mother and I and Pete McCormick to travel to Germany to compete over there. What kind of a town does that? There was never a question. They found out that I was invited to this international meet, and they put their funds together, and on a plane we went. And I'll tell you, from that experience, I wanted to be on that kind of a level. I wanted to be the best in the world. From the time I was 8 years old, people would look at me and go, God, what do you want to be? In this very room, Mrs. Soquist would have us stand up and go, what do you want to be? And I want to be an Olympic gold medalist. And all of my friends, did they laugh? No. All through grade school, high school, they knew that that's what I wanted to be and to do. I never once thought, because we swam in a little 17-yard-long pool, that I couldn't do that. Of course you can do that. My father rigged up this harness that went across. In fact, he fashioned it from this dog that we had, Chang. It was this harness that went across our chest, and he had a carabiner and a cable that went to the ceiling, and from that ceiling it went over to the side of the pool and then down the side of the pool, and he had a weight stack, a 5, 10, 20, 30-pound weight stack. And when Laurie or I would be harnessed to that, we'd be swimming toward the end of the pool, and as soon as we got close enough, and as we were getting stronger, he would just go over to the side and put another weight on the stack, so we never reached the end, and people couldn't believe that. Laurie and I don't ever think our parents, I know my big brother certainly didn't, never entered their mind that we wouldn't make it to the very top. Laurie goes on to win 2 Pan Am gold medals, which is unheard of at the age of 24 years old. The only woman ever to beat a Mary T. Maher, best in the world. this gal was the best in the world. And we did that out of this little pool until we were 18 years old. My parents used to say, I can teach you the greatest of strokes, and that's what they did, taught us just the best strokes. Because once you have the opportunity to go to college and get beyond, that is where you will get stronger. And you know, I never thought that I couldn't do that. Never thought I couldn't do that. Because we had that belief with this community, certainly within our family. My father used to grab me by the shoulders all the time. And I'm sure he did it to my siblings. And he'd go, you are great. It was never, you could be great. I hope one day you're going to be great. Wendy, don't you worry, someday you're going to be just great. And I say it all the time, it wasn't until I was a parent and had kids of my own that I understood what he was talking about. It really wasn't about Wendy being great in the pool. It was about, Wendy, you're just great as a person. I think that comes from community. I think that comes from a town. I think that comes from family. And I look at you and go, oh my gosh, you come all the way here. It's a Saturday to come and look at this exhibit. Chris has done this amazing job putting it together, and Barb and Lois and Forrest being here, and Bob. Who does that? And again, I'm all over the country. I've never met a town like this. And I'm so proud of this town and the people in it, and the people that have come here, and the people that, honestly, those that know my family, and Laurie and me, you know who you have been in our life. So I thank you very much. If you haven't been to the museum, it's outstanding what you've done. Absolutely outstanding, and I'm really proud to be in there. Thank you very much.
You sang well too.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yes.
you had a beautiful voice.
I would think there's probably questions here. And questions or things to even share. You know, that's what this is all about.
I think beyond what you guys were talking about is you didn't have the money that these Eastern colleges would turn out these kids with. My favorite book, and I know what you know what I'm going to say, right? The Boys in the Boat.
Yep.
If you haven't read The Boys in the Boat,
I read that.
these guys are like the boys in the boat. They had no background like this. They didn't have money. They didn't know if they were going to be able to afford tuition the next year. And with that little bit of support, they whooped all the other Eastern colleges. They won gold medals in the Olympics. That was really beautiful. The Berlin Olympics with Adolf Hitler in the stands, they beat the Germans with a Jewish coxswain. At the same time, Jesse Owens is winning 4 gold medals. It kind of ruined this whole Aryan, superiority that he was. But anyway, you guys had that little bit of support, and yet you went and did what you did.
Well,
That really is great. Yeah.
We have, with the 17-yard long pool, it took, 8 laps for us to do our races,
Right.
the 100 meters.
And our teammates.
Right, because I had my big sister Bonnie on that team, Luke was on the team, and we had 12 of us. The Caruso were there, we just had so many, we had like 14 at the height of it. My father decided in the wintertime, because in the winter the hotel actually would get pretty crowded, but my mother would get up at 5:30 in the morning, and before school would take Laurie and I to the pool, and we would train at 5:30 in the morning, come back, she'd have breakfast, and then we'd hop on the bus
Yeah.
and go to school, or when we were in grade school, just walk across and go to school here. And then in the summertime, because the hotel, which is the same, is just big with companies and pharmaceutical companies would come in, we couldn't even get pool time. So my dad decided to take us to Beaver Lake. He's going to train us long course in Beaver Lake. So what he did was he took the clothesline and he made these little wooden buoys, and he drilled holes in each of them, put the clothesline through, and he strung it across this area in the Beaver Lake. My dad and I, every single May, we'd go out, Laurie was a little bit littler, and we'd go out into the end of Beaver Lake there, where it was shallow, and we would pound that starting block in, just him and me, and pound this block that he had made over the winter. He'd take the lane line, and we had just one lane line, and the day that he wanted to do long distance, he would bring the little rowboat down, and he would follow Laurie and I around the lane in a rowboat. I never thought anything, I just thought this is what you do, this is what you do, I guess. It's fun, it's weird.
Wendy, it was the jeans.
Yeah, our friends would come and watch us. So,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden it became our lake. You know, our townspeople's lake, and it was just phenomenal. And we cherished those.
For those of you who don't know, Beaver Lake is behind the golf course.
Yeah.
Right,
And,
that's right.
and very cold.
Right, it was
Yeah.
cold. It was
Deep,
cold.
very deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where Bill Moyle taught swimming lessons. Do you remember Bill Moyle?
No, I remember.
He was a swimming
Okay.
instructor at the Gateway. And he taught our kids how to swim.
Swim.
They'd be shivering like this.
No, your mom taught me how to swim.
Well, I mean, but you were younger.
It was so great, yes.
Well, that was kind of my question. So how did your parents pass on those fundamentals to, I mean, they just were kind of learning?
Oh, well, so
or you
that's a
had to-
great question, because you're like, God, where did they learn how to, my mother was so far ahead of her time, athletic-wise. I mean, we're one of 7 children. Laurie and I, she's the youngest, I'm second youngest, so there's 5 girls and 2 boys. She was a swimmer until she was 26 years old, went throughout the state, competed. She was competing a year before they got married, actually. Baseball, so you've seen The League of Your Own?
I was going to say
My mother
baseball
was
was
a-
another one, yeah.
She was a catcher for the Merrill Cardinals, and she traveled all over the country as a baseball player, as a catcher. I mean, she was just, we grew up, and she would tell us girls, someday they're gonna have college scholarships for women. Someday, this is in the late 50s and 60s, long before Title IX came into play in 1973. That is what she kept telling us. Someday you're going to get a college scholarship, and both
We
Laurie
had
and
an
I,
opportunity.
we got an opportunity.
Yeah.
I had wanted to go. I graduated Eagle River High School with a lot of my friends, and I wanted to go to the University of Madison because that's where the great coach was. Jack was there, and I applied to go into nursing school. I wanted to swim. Jack had known me, I mean, he had known how I swam from the time I was a kid all the way up, and so I get the letter from the university saying we've accepted you into school, and I never got a letter from the coach. And a couple weeks go by and I get the letter from the coach, and he said, boy, you know, we see that you've been accepted to Madison, but you know, you're really not swimming material. Really not what we're looking for. I still have the letter. And I said to myself, and my mother and my dad said the same thing, no one is going to determine your value or your worth. It's up to you. And you know, just by the chance of luck, I get a letter from Monmouth University, it was Monmouth College, and they said, we'd love you to come here. They gave me a full ride. I met my husband in 1973. We were married in 75. We were 10 months married before I made the Olympic team in 76. And it was, you know, I think back how different my life would have been, because I probably wouldn't have taken that route. I would have gone to nursing school, and my whole world would have been totally different. Not met my husband, who had been together for 47 years. I mean,
Boy.
so anyway, so that was just a really long answer, wasn't it? University of Florida.
Yeah, I went to Florida State. A lot of my friends that I went to grade school here with in this beautiful building. Then I went freshman and sophomore year to Northland Pines with like Sharon and Barb. And then because of my swimming at that age, we were swimming, with our team we'd go, like Wendy had mentioned earlier, we go to Stevens Point, Wausau, Milwaukee, and we met friends down there whose family was also looking at opportunities to further their swimming and water polo back in the day for women. And I was given the opportunity to go to Mercersburg Academy in Pennsylvania. And I just turned 15, and I remember coming home from school, and my parents had talked with the coach out there that I got a scholarship out there. And my parents take me outside in our backyard, our present backyard, and they're like, guess where you're going? I'm like, yeah, where? And they're like, you're going away to high school. And I'm like, what? I'm going to Northern Pines with like Sharon and Barb and the Delphos and the Sparkses. And they're like, no, you're going to Pennsylvania. I'm like, Pennsylvania? I couldn't believe it. I knew it was an opportunity of a lifetime, and I would miss everyone here. And I think, being my personality, I was like, yeah, I just don't really want to go. Mom and Dad were like, no, you can go out. You can always come back. They always instilled that I can always come home, and look where I am today at 64. I did be able to move home, thankfully. But they were like, go, we'll buy you new suitcases and sure. That was my gift. I loved them. And I had the opportunity to play water polo. I went my junior and senior year. I come home Thanksgiving and Christmas. But it gave me a great education, and it enabled me to do really well in swimming and water polo. And then go on to college. I mean, I never really dreamed about going to college, just in the back of my head, but I didn't think I was really that great swimming-wise. But once I got there, we lived in the dormitories. It was like a mini college. So at 15, I was just like, oh my gosh, I have my own room, I have a roommate. I mean, I really became college in just those 2 years. So it was a great opportunity. But again, not that our parents were like, get out the door, but it was more, you have an opportunity to become better educated. Not that it wasn't here, but just more opportunity to meet new people, sky's the limit. It wasn't always about going away. It was given opportunities and see what happens. It was always take a chance, see what happens, and I'm very thankful. I have friends all over the U.S. that I keep in touch with.
And I think that is such a cool thing that we all can relate in our lives, right? Mm-hmm. We had parents, as I bet everybody in this room, when you really think about what they have sacrificed for us, right? Mm-hmm. Is they showed you opportunities where other people didn't see any. And I think that is a pretty cool thing, where anybody else from Madison would have went, you can't make it in a pool that's 17 yards long. You can't make it with a tether. You can't make it in a lake with your dad following you in a rowboat.
They're small communities. It's like, where is Lando Lake?
Yeah.
Walking to Lando, I mean, it's a 5-hour car. It was like we were from Mars.
Like you're trying to go, Laurie, you made butter.
Skiers, cross-country skiers, cyclists, but swimming, I mean, it's like the place that you'd never think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just like, how
Whenever you said Land O'Lakes, they say, oh, is that where you make the butter?
right, exactly right.
It would be like, how can a town of 700-800 people even support you or get you to these meets? And you all sure did. So
Laurie,
thankful.
what were you competing in when you couldn't go to the?
So
84.
Yeah, in 84, first in 1980,
Was the boycott.
Was the boycott, and I made the national team, and we competed against other countries that were boycotted. So we had an international meet in Hawaii. That was wonderful. I started swimming really well, and then 1983 was Pan Am, so I was fortunate. I made the Pan Am team, and we went to Venezuela. And then on to Tokyo for a month of swimming internationally.
Pan Am results.
Yeah.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And these, you can look at them today, then they go back to the museum under lock and key.
Thank you. And then after Pan Am's, I became #1 in the world for 2 years, for 83 and 84.
Breaking them.
I was top of my game, went to Olympic trials. They were in Indianapolis in 84. I got the flu, I became very ill. So with swimming, I was in top seed, obviously, as I had just mentioned. Went to the meet that day, I knew I had fever, and I was fortunate my mom was with my husband and I. And she's like, just go in and swim. You never know what's going to happen. So here, it was great pressure because everyone's like, you're #1 in the world, you're going to make the team. And then I was very ill, and I swam. I was in the last heat, and it just wasn't there. so I didn't make the 84 team. All my friends did. I mean, they only take top 2,
Right.
and actually I finished probably 40th at the end. So I was like number 1 to 40th, but you know, I was very proud. And I just retired from swimming after that. That was my lesson as well, life lesson.
But wasn't there a one point in time that you would have competed, but you couldn't because of
Boy,
And that was
that was
the
1980.
Soviet Union thing, right?
Pardon?
Wasn't it with the Soviet Union?
Yeah.
or something?
Yeah, the boycott with
Yeah.
Jimmy Carter was our president at the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought.
But we went on to make the national team, so they split us up and we had a great international meet.
Well, you girls have had a long and very, very beautiful.
Well, thank you, yeah.
Wendy, what, I don't know if I should, weren't they doping in Germany?
Yes.
Yeah.
So my Olympics, 1976, the East German women, how many remember that?
Yeah.
These women look more like my big brother Todd and my nephew than they did. And I'm a big girl, 6 feet, you know, 138 pounds then. Yeah, they were all caught doping. When the wall came down in 1989, all of that was exposed. People went to jail over there. Fines were put out. I mean, these women athletes of 23 women from East Germany, I mean, they doped 10,000 athletes in East Germany at the time. I did several documentaries. One is called, the recent one is called The Last Gold, and it played on in theaters 4 years ago. So it's on YouTube. It's called The Last Gold, and it tells that story about what happened with the East German women, why they were on drugs, how, you know, it was a communist country that forced them to do that. And there's always the one side of the coin that they didn't have a choice, right? They're 15, 16 years old. If you your parents want to have a car, if you want to have an apartment, if you want to eat, these are the things that they do. And a lot of these young women who were 13, 14 given anabolic steroids, I mean, their bodies were transformed in over the years. And again, my point has always been, even though they didn't know it, it never made it right. So they went into 1976 and won every single gold medal, other than the women's breaststroke. And our United States women hadn't won one single gold medal in 1976. It was the first time since 1952 that we had ever gone to an Olympics as an American women's team and not won gold medals. And so all week long, all we saw was the very first day, I see Shirley Babashoff, Kim Payton, Jill Sturkle, 3 fastest women, all world record holders and American record holders at one time, stand up on the block in the 100 free for a final, making it through, because they swum 3 times for those hundreds, making it through to the final and get 4th, 5th, and 7th. And they weren't a hand touch away from the 1st and 2nd and 3rd. They were a full body length behind. And I looked at that going, God, how is that even possible? Because 4 years before, this whole East German team was nothing. They won a few silver and a few bronze. That was it. And the size of these women, and every day the media was after us going, oh my gosh, what is wrong with the American women? What is wrong with you? And you know, after a few days and you look at these women and you're standing next to them, and you look and you go, there's something not right. And we were a little vocal than we probably should have been. There was no media training back then. I was one of the oldest ones. I was 21. Bernie and I were married. There was one other woman on the team, 23 years old. The average age of our team was 16 years old. And so they were a little mouthy, and I was like, this is not, there's something wrong. They're just, you know, every single day the media was just in our face. You are such losers. Such losers. So Shirley Babashoff, by the time I swam my 100-meter butterfly, which I won a bronze medal against 2 East German women.
Were you pregnant then?
Pardon me? No, that was 77. I got out of the pool. Well, first of all, I touched. I knew I hadn't won a gold. I could see Cornelia Ender, who was winning everything, and I saw Andrea Pollack, who took 2nd. But I was pretty sure I got something, a medal in there. So I touched the wall, and I turned around to look at and I wore big, thick glasses. You remember that? And I turned around to see it. I'm squinting to see what place I got. And I was in lane 5, so I'm looking just at 5 going, oh, I got 5th. Well, I didn't get last. So I got 5th, and I turned, and the attendant's looking at me, and he's kind of really happy, Quebec guy, and I said, how did I do? And he goes, oh honey, you just got yourself a bronze medal. And I was just so excited. So I come out and they put you in a booth with all the press, and the press is going, how does it feel to get a bronze medal? And it was only Shirley and I, at the end of the Olympic Games, Shirley Babashoff, Wendy Weinberg, and myself are the only ones to win individual medals that whole week until that final night that we won an Olympic gold medal, and we beat the East Germans, set a world record, and people say, how did you do it? And I think it's just belief. We had nothing to lose, and we had everything to gain. And by the end of that night, you know, had we all had adversity, right? And had we stood up on the block and had actually paid attention to what the press, and it was our own US press and all the world press, had we believed everything that they had told us that whole week, that we were losers, that we weren't going to win, we never would have stood up on the block. We never would have got down. We never would have won an Olympic gold medal. And I'll tell you, history would remember that race very, very differently. And I think those are the things that you learn as we do as young people, and certainly as an athlete. It was an amazing time, and it all, you know, I think back and God, it all started here.
This is so Christian.
It's that, right?
The Lansbach.
It's
that's right.
amazing. Hillary.
So I know why you're doing what you're doing, but what prompted you? How did you get into motivational speaking?
Well, speech and drama major in college, and you know, we sang. I mean, we did the chorus, we played band, we did all this stuff, and I like to talk. And I kind of got into it because that was what I was going to do then when I went to Monmouth. I had dropped nursing, and I went into speech and drama. But you know, after the Olympics, everybody wants you to go somewhere. Can you speak at this? Can you do this? Could you come out to Chicago and speak at this? And all of a sudden you're like put in front of 400 people or 5,000 people, and you gotta tell your story. And you know, when you have a story, we all have our stories. I just like to share mine. I travel and I meet kids all over the country, all over the world, and you know, I'm old now, but I think we all benefit, right? We benefit from our parents, we benefit from our siblings, and I think those are the things that I enjoy. I mean, I like sharing a story.
Like I said, the genes.
Wendy, what week was it when you were pregnant and you wanted?
Yeah, I was almost 5 months pregnant. And that was, our daughter was born in 1978, so I, like Laurie, was training for 1980. And so I had gone to national championships. You hardly saw anything.
Yeah.
And I took 9th in the 100-meter free, and I swam a couple relays. And I mean, I only gained, 16 pounds with Bonnie Lee. So I swam right up too. And then I was American record holder in the 100 fly. So I mean, my goal was to make the 1980 Olympic team. And then in March, Jimmy Carter had made it known that we weren't going to go. And I was there were 50 athletes from both the 76 team and the 72 team that were invited to the White House to sit and hear the whole spiel why we weren't going about the boycott. And you know, right then and there, he was not going to change his mind, and right then and there, I just decided I'm not hanging on 4 more years. Laurie was going to not go in 1980 either, and Laurie was a lot younger, and I was just done. I was just done, yeah. I had had mine, and it was okay. Oh, yes.
I'm wondering if either or both of you still swim to stay fit, and if so, as a former competitive swimmer myself, what inspiration can you offer to get back in the pool?
I still love swimming. I'm fortunate to swim at the Gateway yet, and the older I am, I'm glad the pool's a little bit smaller. I get very tired, but I'm severely asthmatic, so it's a great opportunity for me to keep my lungs clear and everything. I don't run, but I walk, so I swim like 2-3 times a week before work, and it helps me tremendously.
And
I still love it.
I've seen you come off the beach a few
Yeah, a
times
couple
too.
times over at beautiful Black Oak. I'll swim there
Yeah.
a little bit. Butte is there a little bit, but yeah, mostly inside now.
And I am never far from the pool. We just moved to St. Petersburg, Florida, so I've got a 50-meter pool 8 minutes from our house. 50 meters, 20 lanes across. It's like heaven. And we love the water. I mean, it's great fitness. Getting back into it, it's like anything. And now I'll be out of the water for a week before we go back. And it's like anything, right? It's just like, I know swimming because it's only you. That first day, it's so hard. Because you just go, God, I've lost a whole week. But I think the great thing with any sport, and you're all skiers and all of these things, is once you hit it back in, then I just love the feel of the water. I still love, and I can still hear my mother's voice going, get those fingertips in, pulling through. And I mean, it's just such a great exercise. It's full body workout. So I swim 3-4 times a week, and I still continue to lift weights. I was always inspired by my big brothers, who my dad was like, no, you need to be lifting weights. And so he would have Laurie and I out in the garage. My big brother had his big weight set and the big bench, and you can look at the size of him and my other brother Luke. And that was just something that they taught us to do, that you've got to be strong, that you can't give that up. And the older I get, I'm 66, that's so important for your brain. You got to get blood pumping up to your brain. And the only way you can do that really is you've got to be able to move. And once you and I can't get out of a chair, you've got to be able to get in and out of a chair. And you got to be able to get blood to the brain. You don't need to be exerting. I mean, I don't need to do what Laurie and I did 40 years ago.
I can't do
but
it.
I need to work at it, because the alternative is not that good. And the other thing is you got to eat well.
Use it or lose it.
If you can't, right, if you're picking stuff off the shelf and you don't recognize the first 5 ingredients in that, you just put that right back on the shelf and you just eat real food. And we live in a town that has that opportunity. You live in city life and it's pretty slim pickings seeing what you can get in a lot of ways. But you've got gardens and you've got all of that wonderful food, and I think that's what we learned in Maryland here is great food.
Wendy, isn't it true that, so back to those competitors, Eastern Europeans and Hungarians and all that, some of those weren't even women?
Well, the swimmers were, but it's questionable.
Then they actually caught the Yugoslavian, I remember they caught some guy in the shower.
We thought, I mean, everyone in Montreal, the Olympic Games, and certainly back in my era, they did a quick swab when you came into the games.
Be sure you're a woman.
And you had to do a urine test after every event. But they were so, obviously over 45 years, it's a totally different thing today, right? I mean, now, and the chemistry and the doctors and all of that. I mean, the opportunity for cheating is always going to be there for those that cheat. We haven't had men in our women, but these were big women that were on performance-enhancing drugs. And I just never even, I would never even thought of that. But when you saw the size of these women, 170 pounds, Cornelia Ender, 5'9", 170 pounds, no neck, and super strong, and just super fast. When a year ago, she was just like this little. Like Laurie and I, don't we still look like athletes, right? Yeah. You look at these women today, I did a documentary about 10 years ago, and you'd look at these women and go, oh, yeah, probably CPA, thin, lean, don't do anything. They're just tiny, they're tiny, so whole different, just so tiny.
And many of Wendy's competitive friends said she had developed friendships with the East German women, women from Russia. She became friends with them and then saw them afterwards, and many had disabilities.
And their children do and their grandchildren do.
Really?
So, yeah.
From all the doping.
Cancers that they didn't recognize years ago, that we never even saw. I mean, that's what happened to these young women. And there were 23 and 21 of them. Their children have deformities, feet deformities, club feet. So, I mean, it doesn't just stop with what they did. It's into that whole bloodline.
Wow.
Yes?
When you were having these wonderful experiences, what were the experiences of your siblings?
Oh, they should be talking. So Bonnie was on the swimming team. Linda, my big brother Todd's Marine Corps. So when I went into Montreal, you were getting ready to go to Vietnam. different?
I was teaching in this room.
My sister Linda was, stand up, Linda.
This is my classroom.
And Bonnie?
I was at home being a homemaker, mom, and then I went, back to work and worked in a school as a office help, library assistant, so that's what I did.
She also was in a pool.
Yeah.
I
coached for 5 years.
They do have to share that this is Bonnie's
Yes.
I was very little then.
warm-up for the Gateway Hotel swim team. And actually should have you, maybe, go back a little bit with Mr. Williamson.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about
I was sponsored.
how he sponsored you and what he did for the swim team and what made you, more of what made the swim team so special.
Yes, it wouldn't have happened without Mr. Williamson.
Yeah.
He saw talent, I think. He saw the opportunity. He had this hotel, he had the pool, he had his hotel down south, and he was sponsoring this ice skater, Janet Lynn, who was an Olympic bronze medalist. So he had helped fund that down there at the wagon wheel, and she became, international. She was amazing. So he had this aptitude, I think, for just his kindness. Just go, and he used to tell my mom, gosh, if just one makes it somewhere, wouldn't that just be great? And so he sponsored our team. He would provide buses. We'd go down to Milwaukee. We'd go to Port Edwards. We'd go to Stevens Point. We'd go to Toledo, Ohio, or Pennsylvania. And he always would sponsor this team of whether it was 14 or 10 or 6. And gave us that money and provided that for us because he wanted us to have that opportunity. Because he felt that in a small town, people can excel at a level just like a big city, and probably even better because they have that community. He was integral. I used to get several letters from him, and I would write him back. I think we've got one in the
There's
museum.
one in the museum.
He always called me Miss Lansbach. And he passed away before both Laurie and I had made Pan Ams in the Olympics. So it was what he did to fund that. And Mr. McCormick. Yeah.
He would come up and watch you swim.
Yep, he'd come up and watch us swim. Yeah.
We'd come up to the gateway and look around.
Was that the wagon wheel?
The wagon wheel down in the Rockville. Yeah.
But he loved it up here, and he loved the gateway, obviously, when he took it over in '61.
We built a second story.
Yeah, he built that second story at the gateway, that's still today. I mean, he'd be so proud that it's still standing, and that's again because of our community. I mean, as you all know, the gateway's gone through many, many changes, and he would be very proud that as a community it's still standing and it's magnificent. It's magnificent.
We're lucky to have that beautiful
Yeah.
gateway. I always say it's like, I've always loved the lodges in our national parks. We've got the same thing right here in Land O'Lakes. We still have this beautiful
And look how many people are transferring up here.
Yeah.
People moving up to the Northwoods because it's just beautiful. They love the community vibe. They love everything about it. We're very fortunate. But he was a seeker.
I just had to ask about butterfly. I mean, by far, that's the hardest
Yes,
stroke by far. And how did you, to do the endurance in a small pool? I know these weights helped a lot, it sounds like, but just,
It's all in it,
I can't
honestly.
even imagine.
It's such stroke mechanic and technique like anything. And in a small pool, it's difficult, and I think that's why the lake and the tether was so great, because you didn't have to interrupt your stroke for turns all the time. And Laurie and I, as you can see, Laurie's taller than me, so over 6 feet tall, and big arm reach like got my big brother Todd, my brother Luke. We're built just really long, and I love the stroke, and we were good at it. You always tend to do something that you're good at, but our folks always emphasize that you still have to work all the other strokes that maybe you don't like. But it was really the ones that you really like and that you really have a knack for, those are the ones that you pursue, and that's what we did. Laurie and I were both flyer and freer.
Yeah. With a
We
lot-
didn't do backstroke. My sister Bonnie was a breaststroker. Shorter people tend to be breaststrokers, and if you watch her walk, here's her feet. Yes.
We should show too that,
Oh, yeah.
I think Sandy Roberts, that your dad made this.
Yes.
She made that. It's a collage of pictures of these guys, you know, as young ones. Plus, I think some of the other.
So Kathy Nagel was on our team.
Yeah.
Kathy and Karen.
Kathy and Karen, yep. The McCormicks,
The
Steve,
Laugh
Chris,
Kids.
the Laughs. Jimmy was on.
Marianne Demers? No?
Marianne Demers.
Yep, Marianne Demers, yep.
Steve LaFrisk.
Oh, yeah.
Steve, yep.
Yeah, you guys, yeah.
Laurie tried really hard to get, you know, some of the other swim team members to come today. And,
Well, Kathy's having health issues, I
but
know.
there's, yeah,
Yeah,
Too far.
yeah, and like Peter,
Some are-
far, and
right.
Kathy and Sandy are out in Wyoming yet, and it's.
But we have so much fun.
Yeah,
You know, we'd finish a practice with our group of 12 or 14, and unbeknownst to us, we'd finish at night, like, you know, 6:30 or 7, get out of the pool, and Chuck McCormick, but because of Walt, would provide and provide the dollars for all these hamburgers to be put out on, you know, on the tables around the pool, and we would have these like little parties. Wouldn't be often, but that was like such a big deal. So it was the training was hard, but we always had those little
The memories.
things that made it even more special. Traveling to swimming meets with our team, we had so much fun.
I remember your father peeking in the window into the pool just to watch Mrs. Lansbach in the water.
Yeah.
She'd say, "There he is." So she's holding me in the water and we're waving at him. It was kind of cool.
That's sweet.
Yes.
It's so wonderful that your family is so grounded. I love that.
Oh, thank you.
And you know, kudos to your parents. They did an amazing job. But, but have the young competitors changed? You do a lot of speaking. I know you've spoken to the young competitors to encourage them. Have they changed generally?
In terms of parents providing encouragement for
That,
their
is
attitude.
there more pressure? Is there more, I don't know.
I think that there is a lot more pressure. I mean, we know a lot of athletes from today, of Michael Phelps, Ryan Lochte, you know, these athletes, because they're making, the top ones, make a tremendous amount of money. I mean, you win an Olympic gold medal and you walk away with $37,000 from the United States Olympic Committee for an Olympic gold medal, right? So, I mean, that wasn't what we had in our day. So,
What did you get when you made, for your gold medal?
what did we get?
Yeah.
Well, you always get swag. When you make the Olympic team, you get your sweats, and I got a
Beautiful.
Frisbee. I got a watch. You know, you get, you know, those, but those we were so, you know, I think
Grateful
too,
for it,
we were
yeah.
so grateful. And I'm not saying that the athletes today aren't grateful. There's a lot that are not. Just like in my day, there's probably a lot that were not. But the pressure of, you know, you have an athlete who's going to make, you know, $3, $4, $5, $10 million in sponsorship, and to make the Olympic team and their sponsor before that, and that kind of money, where you're making that kind of money, and you got to stand up on the block and not only be great for your country and be great for yourself and your family and your communities that supported you, but now you got this enormous weight of, I got to show what I'm made of because they're just giving me $5 million to perform. So I think the pressure is very different. I think, like anybody, people handle it just differently. Some crack, some don't.
Yeah.
Olympic trials are really, they're just really hard. You know, you make the Olympic team, you can always say, I was an Olympian, right? If you go to trials and they only take 2 out of each event, and you've got, you know, 1,000 people trying to the top of the top that have to meet standards in our sport of swimming anyway, that opportunity is just so small. I went to Olympic trials 76. 200 free was a great event for me. I should have made the Olympic team on that Monday, and I didn't. I made consos. You know, you talk about, and you can see it with athletes, you know, you have to get that out of your head. You have to put it away. It's why my husband always says the Tom Brady's and the Aaron Rodgers and you know, the Peyton Mannings can throw a duck, right? And then they gotta get right back up, and even though they toss that ball and it's awful, they gotta get back up and pretend that that never happened. And I was fortunate in '76 because Bernie and I were married, and I was very grounded with my folks because I talked to them a lot, my siblings. You just have to put that aside and not let it take you, because if you make the Olympic team, you're an Olympian. If you go to Olympic trials, which are every 4 years, and you don't make the team, you gotta go through that in 4 more years if you can make it for 4 more years. And that, it is a lot of pressure. You have Olympians that are making not only 1 or 2 Olympics, like in our day, you've got Olympians that are making 3, 4, and 5 Olympic teams over the spread of like 23 years to make all of those Olympic teams. I think the pressure is great. I'm glad I swam when I swam. I really am, because it was the American flag and my family. That's what it was. And that to me was just so awesome.
I just want to make sure that everyone who wants that link
Yes.
that your niece made can get it. So you can get it through our office here.
Great.
You can send me your email, or call me, and I'll make sure you get the link. It's going to probably be put on Facebook because of Bob Hughes.
Thank you.
So if you don't do Facebook, make sure you contact our office and we can make sure the link gets to your email.
It's a nice film. It was done by our niece Dory, my big brother Luke, his daughter, for her film masters. She did this film about the Gateway, about Land O'Lakes, about how we grew up, about my folks, about Walt, about
A couple years ago.
yeah, a couple years ago. So that's the link that you were doing.
But you're gonna need a Kleenex.
It's called Growing Up Gold.
Yeah.
And I watched the trailer today
Okay.
before I got a little choked up. It's beautiful. I mean, she really did a good, I only watched 2 minutes, and I wanted to see the whole thing. So thank you for the
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much for the link. Yeah.
Yes.
Do any of your family continue in the swimming?
Actually, my 2 daughters swam competitively. We were coaching them at the time. They swam all through high school. They were fortunate to have college scholarships in swimming. My youngest went to the University of Maryland on a swimming scholarship, and my other daughter went to University of Wyoming, and then she transferred to Northern. But they all swam competitively, and they were very good swimming, but they loved the camaraderie with the teammates. Our teams were also small back in New York. The best thing was just to have friends all over the U.S. Places they go, they still have great friendships with them. My youngest did travel abroad for her swimming meets, and I think they're 35 and 33. I have 2 grandsons now, but that's what they tell me. They go, Mom, it was just so nice as a family going to swim meets, and they remember our car getting flat tires on the way. We didn't have a lot, but we stayed in hotels and just winged it with their team, and those are the memories that they tell me are so special, and the friends they still have today. And it really wasn't about getting scholarships as much, but that was part of it because they needed that to continue their education. But just the camaraderie and family values that they still look at today. Yeah.
Our 3 children did not swim. They all know how to swim. Our son is in Hawaii, he and his family, they're all great little surfers. But we had the complete opposite, because coming out of Montreal and having only that 1 gold medal, I would get, when we started our daughter Bonnie on the swimming team where I swam, I'd get parents that would come up to her, really, and I'd be right there, and they'd go, are you going to be an Olympic gold medalist like your mother? Who does that? They're like, but they all know how to swim, and they've always enjoyed that. Yeah.
Wow.
Anybody else?
This is beautiful.
Well, thank you. Thanks for
And I want to say too, I thank you all for coming, but we've got food back there, and we really need to have have it eaten. So please, let's just, we can stay and visit, socialize, and have a snack. And I've got a little mini display right there I put up on the bulletin board, the same things that are in the museum. There's a lot more in the museum. And the museum is open yet. There's somebody, we have a docent there right now till 3. And so there's lots of time to go over there yet too.
Yeah, it's really good.
Anyway, thank you all so much for coming. We also, we have to promote things, so we've got our books here, if anyone would like to look at them. If you don't have one of our newsletters, help yourself. And then, again, we got some of Laurie's, we'll guard these. Some of Laurie's medals are up here if you'd like to see them. So, thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you all.
Thank you.